Wang Lin gritted his teeth, ignoring the roar of the chasm maw beneath him. He charged forward once more, heading straight into the thick mist. But at that very moment, the massive crack on the ground surged upwards. In that instant, the entire earth seemed to be rising, and with its movement, the entire Xun'er star shook with violent rumblings. The earth cracked in large, shattered pieces, and countless lands crumbled, vanishing into the starry sky. This scene was almost identical to the previous one when his true body absorbed the spiritual energy of a planet, causing it to collapse. However, the difference was that the planet's collapse originated from within, and its destructive power was so great that if an ordinary cultivator were too close, they would have no chance of survival. But Xun'er star was different. Although it was collapsing, it lacked the planet-destroying force. Instead, it was as though the moon-gazing beast's awakening, with its massive body moving, shook off the layers of dust from countless ages that had clung to it, forming the land beneath. The rising earth was merely an illusion in the eyes of those observing. In reality, this land was part of the moon-gazing beast's body. The so-called rising was simply the moon-gazing beast turning over and lifting its head. The massive crack was rapidly approaching, so fast it was almost unfathomable. As Wang Lin looked down, a cold light flashed in his eyes. The power of the ascension fruit was still active, not yet fully dissipated. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to escape to this point. If he could just stop the moon-gazing beast for a moment, he would be able to break through the mist and step into the starry sky. Wang Lin gritted his teeth, about to reach for his storage pouch. But at that moment, his gaze suddenly sharpened. As the enormous crack drew nearer, Wang Lin clearly sensed a familiar fluctuation coming from deep inside. It was the 7-star sword formation. He withdrew his hand from the pouch, formed a seal, and pointed forward. "Sword formation, spin," he shouted. His voice resonated with a divine power, as if the words themselves were a command. The air around him crackled with the sound of thunder as the 7-star sword formation was triggered deep inside the approaching crack. The sword formation roared, spinning at an incredible speed, unleashing endless sword chi that relentlessly attacked from within. However, these attacks were insignificant to the moon-gazing beast. They could do nothing to halt it, not even for a moment. As the crack drew ever closer, Wang Lin's eyes flashed coldly. "Sword of the rat, explode," he bellowed. A muffled explosion echoed inside the crack. At the same time, a roar erupted as the crack's upward motion accelerated, closing in on Wang Lin, who was now less than 100 feet away from it. His speed was also extremely fast, and with the immortal guard puppet, they had already entered the thick mist. Yet, the mist was rapidly dissipating as the crack neared, vanishing entirely in the blink of an eye. For the first time in countless ages, the mist around Xun'er star disappeared. The high pig, Wei sheep, Shen monkey, Cho ox, In tiger, and Mao rabbit all explode. Wang Lin's eyes burned with madness. Booms and crashes rang out, reverberating violently within the moon-gazing beast's body. The 7-star sword formation wasn't just self-destructing its sword bodies. Even the malevolent spirits attached to it transformed into an immense force, shattering into destructive energy. The combined onslaught was aimed at the moon-gazing beast in a vicious attack. However, the moon-gazing beast's power was so overwhelming that the self-destruction of the 7-star sword formation had no effect. It merely slowed the impact slightly. And that slight delay was exactly what Wang Lin needed. Together with the immortal guard puppet, he swiftly broke through, the starry sky stretching ahead of them. The massive cracks opening, upon slowing down, immediately returned to normal. The ascension fruit's power had ensured that it hadn't yet realized what had caused the intense pain and excitement. But just as it had recently awakened in a daze, the moon-gazing beast suddenly recognized something familiar about the objects the two fleeing beings were carrying. Instinctively, it began to pursue, wanting to capture these strangely familiar items. As it saw the two fleeing beings gaining speed, a voice, as if it had come from eons ago, echoed from the crack. The sound had no real meaning, but its tone was eerie beyond belief. At the moment the sound echoed, Wang Lin's scalp tingled. That sound was the ancient god tongue. In 2C's memories, there's no record of the moon-gazing beast speaking the ancient god tongue. What kind of moon-gazing beast is this? Wang Lin gasped in shock. As the ancient god tongue reverberated from the crack, Wang Lin had a sudden realization. It wasn't the moon-gazing beast chasing him. No, it was an ancient god in its full maturity. The ancient god tongue roared like an ancient cry from the very heavens, filled with an immense aura of life and death power that threatened Wang Lin with every passing moment. The starry sky around him seemed to shatter, as cracks formed in the very fabric of space. The sight nearly caused Wang Lin's soul to flee in terror. He knew this divine ability, the shattering technique, which only the 8-star ancient gods could use. It could cause everything in the line of sight to collapse and reassemble in some way, turning into dust. The life and death crisis had never been so close. Wang Lin abruptly turned, a loud roar escaping his mouth, followed by an eerie sound. What he spoke was also the ancient god tongue, passed down from 2C. The ground trembled, and the massive chasm slightly contracted. At the same time, 2 more giant fissures appeared on the land, revealing a pair of cold eyes within. The gaze fell on Wang Lin, exuding a hint of coldness and confusion. The surrounding starry sky, interrupted by the moon-gazing ancient god spell, ceased its collapse for the moment. Wang Lin wasted no time and turned to flee, the immortal guard puppet maintaining its speed. Just then, a thin figure, filled with a mix of fear and excitement, rushed out from the depths of the chasm at an incredible speed. It was none other than the greedy wolf. The dramatic shift of the moon-gazing beast caused the excretion and absorption zone to writhe violently, creating a slight gap. The greedy wolf rushed out from this gap, never forgetting the giant cauldron. After escaping from the excretion and absorption zone, the greedy wolf sensed the terrifying nature of the moon-gazing beast. Without hesitation, he soared into the air with the strength of the giant cauldron, his eyes fixed on the enormous rift ahead, even catching sight of the starry sky above it. Excitement, never before felt in 100 years, surged through his body like crashing waves. He was nearly in tears. The life of being neither man nor beast, constantly surrounded by the stench of evil, was finally coming to an end. He recalled the past century, most of it spent in the foul excretion and absorption zone. To him, it was a shame, a naked, undeniable shame. Especially that rancid odor, which he would never forget. Even now, as the stench dissipated, it seemed as if he could still smell it. The greedy wolf swore that once he escaped, he would never set foot in the northern Luo heaven region again. And if he ever had another chance to seek treasure, he would be extra cautious. Seeing the rift approaching rapidly, the excitement in his eyes reached its peak. I, the greedy wolf, am finally going to break free. At that moment, the confusion in the moon-gazing beast's gaze dissipated. The ancient god tongue echoed once again. Wang Lin's body chilled. With life and death hanging in the balance, he no longer cared about much else. He focused his mind, and the immortal guard puppet immediately slowed its pace. The half of the moon-gazing bone it carried was immediately thrown downward. Here's your half. The half of the moon-gazing bone, resembling a continuous mountain range, struck the ground, sending up a fierce wind that howled sharply, causing the chasm to hesitate once more. The collapse of the surrounding starry sky paused again, and the moon-gazing beast focused on the rapidly descending mountain range, confusion flashing in its eyes. This object was very familiar, but it couldn't quite remember what it was. Instinctively, it widened the chasm and swallowed the massive mountain range whole. The greedy wolf's excitement surged like he had swallowed countless ascension fruits. His speed increased as he rushed toward the now approaching rift, almost roaring in joy. The tragic days of nearly 100 years were finally ending. The moon-gazing beast could not teleport, a fact the greedy wolf knew well. The moment it tried, it would be pulled by a strange force, making it even slower. Just then, just as the greedy wolf was about to reach the rift, a massive shadow suddenly enveloped it. The greedy wolf froze, rubbing his eyes in disbelief. He even suspected he was hallucinating. What was this massive shadow? Perhaps the years spent in the stinky excretion and absorption zone had dulled his senses, but the greedy wolf felt disoriented. This is a mountain range. Despair filled his eyes as his excitement evaporated in an instant. In the stark contrast of clarity, anyone would feel a moment of collapse. But the greedy wolf was a master cultivator. With a furious roar, he hurled himself forward, diving straight into the giant cauldron, slamming into its side. The mountain peak howled past, grazing the edge of the giant cauldron, sparking a series of fiery flares. Inside the cauldron, the greedy wolf spat out blood from the impact. Damn it! After barely surviving the mountain peak, the greedy wolf emerged from the giant cauldron, pale. He had yet to fully control the cauldron. Integrating into it was a forced move. If he stayed too long, the terrifying aura inside would soon refine him. Swallowing half of the mountain range, the moon-gazing beast grew more confused. What was this sensation? It felt so familiar, but it couldn't quite recall what it was. Taking advantage of the moon-gazing beast's hesitation, Wang Lin focused his mind once again. The immortal guard puppet quickly arrived, helping Wang Lin lift the other half of the moon-gazing bone and flee toward the starry sky. The confusion in moon-gazing beast's eyes gradually faded. The power of the ascension fruit began to dissipate, and it remembered this half-mountain range was no ordinary object. It had transformed from its own bones. As the ascension fruit faded away, the sharp pain in its body became apparent, and moon-gazing beast immediately realized that the source of the pain was its bones. A storm suddenly erupted. Unprecedented rage, combined with the immense pain no longer concealed by the ascension fruit's fading power, drove it into a fury. If the heavenly Tao has death, then the ancient god has the moon. The word death can be interpreted as spirit or soul. The first half of this sentence speaks of the heavenly Tao, not as a lifeless force, but one with its own inherent existence, a spirit or soul that living beings cannot fully comprehend. The second half refers to moon-gazing beast. In ancient god Tu-Si's memory, moon-gazing beast's true origin was unclear, even to him. It seemed to have existed long, long ago. Just like the soul and spirit of the heavenly Tao, it was an unfathomable existence, with no one able to fully understand its cause and effect. Moon-gazing beast's wrath is like the ancient god's finger. This was the second description of moon-gazing beast in Tu-Si's memory, but it was the one that left the deepest impression on Wang Lin. From the lines, it was understood that when moon-gazing beast became enraged and reached its third form, its power equated to the ancient god's finger. This power could be either immense or minimal. At its peak, a 9-star ancient god's finger could even cause the cultivation star to collapse. On the other hand, a 1-star ancient god's finger would only be a joke. But clearly, the towering moon-gazing beast before Wang Lin now was no laughing matter. Its entire body was covered in cold, sharp light as Wang Lin and the immortal guard pushed their speed to the limit, fleeing with half of moon-gazing beast's bone. Along the way, he tried to absorb using the heaven-defying technique, but for some unknown reason, the process was unbearably slow, and there was no way he could finish it in such a short time. At that moment, the entire misty cloud star reverberated with a booming sound that shook the heavens. The sound was so intense, it was almost like the rumbling of thunder, echoing across vast stretches of the starry sky, carrying with it the roar of immense fury. Wang Lin's eyelids twitched. Without turning back, he ran faster. Without its bones, moon-gazing beast wouldn't die. Given enough time, it could reform its body. But clearly, the bone he carried had been cultivated over countless eons, and it was no wonder moon-gazing beast was so enraged. The massive form of moon-gazing beast slowly began to stretch and elongate from its previous circular shape. The sound of tearing echoed as large patches of land around it collapsed once again, this time more completely than before. Countless massive tentacles extended from its body, swaying with unimaginable force, releasing an aura so overwhelming it could be felt from afar. Greedy Wolf emerged from the giant cauldron, but his timing was terrible. He appeared just as moon-gazing beast was in the midst of its fury. He saw the chasm in the distance, and, with bloodshot eyes, he growled in frustration, desperately accelerating to break free. But just then, the chasm began to slowly close. No! Greedy Wolf howled in agony, his eyes filled with tears of blood. Moon-gazing beast closed its mouth. Its massive form radiated authority, but its movements were slow, not yet fully free. However, As the residual power of the ascension fruit continued to dissipate, its body began to recover. Carrying the bone of moon-gazing beast, Wang Lin, followed by the immortal guard, stepped into the starry sky. He tapped his storage pouch, causing the star compass to fly out. Standing on it, he transformed into a streak of silver light, carrying the long bone of moon-gazing beast and speeding away without a glance back. Moon-gazing beast's cold gaze locked onto Wang Lin's retreating figure. Its massive body's countless tentacles flicked, and in an instant, a violent storm erupted. The intensity of the storm was so great that it caused a sonic boom. The shockwaves surged in all directions. In the midst of the energy wave, moon-gazing beast's massive form seemed to push forward without moving. But the distance between it and Wang Lin closed in an instant. At the same time, moon-gazing beast opened its mouth, and an ancient god's language echoed. In the blink of an eye, Wang Lin's scalp tingled as he saw over 100 moon-gazing beasts, each over 100 feet long, bursting from its mouth like a flood. Greedy Wolf was among them. As he gazed at the starry sky, his excitement reignited. The feeling was indescribable. The taste of the starry sky, long separated from him, was exhilarating. But he knew this was not true escape. The moment he appeared, he noticed Wang Lin on the star compass in the distance. After a brief pause, realization struck him, and hatred flashed in his eyes. However, he dared not act rashly. There were too many beasts around him, each over 100 feet tall. He feared that even a slight movement might attract their attention. Wang Lin took a deep breath. Without hesitation, he pulled out several storage pouches, took out the last few drops of immortal wine, and gritted his teeth to drink it. Only 2 drops remained. In an instant, a surge of immortal power exploded within him. This power was extraordinarily rich and pure, for it was, after all, the essence of a true immortal. Enduring the excruciating pain and the dizzying sensation of near unconsciousness, Wang Lin raised his right hand and pointed fiercely at the approaching group of moon-gazing beasts, shouting, "Freeze!" With a single command, his overwhelming immortal power, as if on the verge of exploding, was unleashed through his right hand, transforming into an immense force that filled the heavens and the earth. The word "freeze" resonated, and in that split second, it felt as if the forces of the world itself had come to a halt. Under normal circumstances, Wang Lin would never have been able to do this, but in this moment, he relied on the power of the immortal wine. Without it, he could never have executed the immobilization technique to such an extent. Seizing the fleeting moment when everything was frozen, Wang Lin turned and swiftly charged forward, his speed unmatched. Without hesitation, he used the teleportation technique of the elderly figure from the land of demonic spirits, one adept in escape arts. However, Wang Lin's freezing only affected the smaller moon-gazing beasts. The massive moon-gazing beast, transformed into the misty cloud star, was utterly unaffected. With a single charge, it unleashed a violent shockwave that immediately freed all the moon-gazing beasts that had been immobilized. Unfortunately for the greedy wolf, his luck was poor. His body was also frozen, and he took longer to recover. Just as he did, the massive moon-gazing beast collided with him, sending him once again into the gigantic chasm. The greedy wolf, feeling as though his vision had blacked out for a moment, then found himself back in the chasm. Desperation filled his eyes as madness took over. He bit down on his tongue and spat a mouthful of blood onto the giant cauldron before him. Immediately, the cauldron released an ancient aura and sent out a rippling wave, swapping places with one of the smaller moon-gazing beasts that was charging towards Wang Lin. His face pale, the greedy wolf spat another mouthful of blood and pointed toward Wang Lin, who was fleeing. His voice full of rage, he roared, "Wang Lin, don't think you can escape." Wang Lin had already noticed the greedy wolf's presence. Without turning his head, he pointed back with his right hand. The remaining storm-like immortal power within him surged once more. Freeze! The greedy wolf was about to use the giant cauldron's technique to swap places with Wang Lin again. But in that instant, the immobilization technique took hold, and his body immediately froze. The moon-gazing beast's gaze suddenly fell upon the giant cauldron before the greedy wolf. A strange light flickered in its eyes as it sensed a comforting energy emanating from the cauldron. Many years ago, When the moon-gazing beast hadn't yet awakened, it spared the greedy wolf's life because of the presence of this cauldron. However, back then, it was merely acting on instinct and had unknowingly sent both the cauldron and the greedy wolf into the excretion and absorption zone. Though the area served as a place of excretion for the moon-gazing beast, it also absorbed energy. The moon-gazing beast subconsciously sought to absorb the cauldron, which explained the greedy wolf's long, tortured life. As soon as the greedy wolf's body was immobilized, the moon-gazing beast immediately began to swallow him. Wang Lin's eyes flashed with a strange light. Seizing this opportunity, he pushed forward and widened the distance between himself and the others. The greedy wolf only saw darkness before he was consumed, finding himself once again at the edge of the chasm. The constant rise and fall of his fate filled his face with bitterness, but the hatred he felt toward Wang Lin only intensified. "It's all because of you," he snarled. Gritting his teeth, the greedy wolf made a hand seal and pressed it against the giant cauldron. A milky white light flickered from his forehead and imprinted onto the cauldron. "Even if I must sacrifice my lifespan, I will escape from here," the greedy wolf roared. The giant cauldron before him absorbed his life force, immediately expanding in size. In the blink of an eye, the cauldron grew without end, releasing an overwhelming ancient aura that echoed endlessly. The moon-gazing beast howled, its voice rumbling through the air. Wang Lin shuddered and vomited another mouthful of blood, clearly injured. As for the immortal guard puppet, it trembled as well. The golden light around it shattered, and even its spiritual sense dimmed slightly. However, it was still less injured than Wang Lin. Taking advantage of the cauldron's expansion, the greedy wolf charged out toward the outside world. At this moment, the moon-gazing beast's giant maw was held open by the ever-growing cauldron, rapidly increasing in size. "I don't want this cauldron anymore," the greedy wolf cried out in agony as he turned to flee. But at that moment, the enormous moon-gazing beast spat out the cauldron. Its eyes gleamed with a strange light, and its tentacles shot out to wrap around the cauldron. Other tentacles reached out toward the greedy wolf, attempting to ensnare him. The greedy wolf's face darkened. He slapped his storage pouch and immediately produced a screen, which he planted on the ground. With both hands, he formed a seal, summoning a tremendous force of mountains and rivers from the starry sky. As Wang Lin fled, his divine sense became disoriented, as if the starry sky had vanished, replaced by an immense, awe-inspiring mountain range. Rivers and mountains painting. The star compass beneath Wang Lin slowed down as his eyes gleamed with greed. He stared fixedly at the giant screen. He had seen this object before. Years ago, the greedy wolf had told him that he hadn't found the real rivers and mountains painting, but he had found this screen, which bore the imprint of the rivers and mountains painting. Moon-gazing's eyes remained cold, and a strange symbol flickered within her gaze. Wang Lin recognized this symbol. It was the ancient god tongue. As the symbol flickered, a gigantic finger, 100 zhang long, materialized in front of moon-gazing. Though this was merely a finger, its skin was extremely rough, yet there was a faint, captivating aura emanating from it. This finger, though ethereal, appeared so real to Wang Lin in that moment that it was beyond imagination. The wrath of moon-gazing, like the finger of the ancient god. Wang Lin sucked in a sharp breath, sweat forming on his forehead, his heart racing. He finally understood the meaning of this phrase. The giant ethereal finger seemed as though it had transformed from the Tao itself, giving the impression that it had replaced the heavens and the earth, creating its own path. This was not a Tao concept born from the enlightenment of an ordinary cultivator. It was infinitely stronger than a Tao concept, so powerful that, in terms of level, it far surpassed one's own path. Though the greedy wolf had reached the peak of Yin deficiency cultivation, his experience was extraordinary. His associates were often second-step cultivators, and he knew many hidden secrets about the second step of cultivation. At this moment, he immediately recognized the terrifying Tao contained within the gigantic finger. With a single point, it appeared calm and serene, as if a mortal had merely extended a finger lightly. But to Wang Lin, that single point caused his pupils to contract, and he had the overwhelming sensation that his essence spirit might leap out of his body to meet that finger. The greedy wolf, closest to the danger, felt it even more intensely. Without hesitation, he retreated, stepping backward into the rivers and mountains painting screen. In that instant, the rivers and mountains reappeared, and the starry sky flickered as if it was vanishing. Even within these rivers and mountains, the ancient god's finger, though ever present since time immemorial, pressed down relentlessly. A series of cracking sounds echoed from the screen, and cracks appeared as the rivers and mountains in the starry sky instantly disappeared. The greedy wolf spat out a mouthful of essence spirit blood, his body retreating rapidly. As he continued to retreat, he coughed up more blood, clearly grievously wounded. The ancient god's finger didn't pause. It continued to press down toward the retreating greedy wolf. Wang Lin's eyes flickered as he stared at the rivers and mountains painting screen, which, though cracked, still seemed to retain its divine power. He noticed the ancient god's finger chasing after the greedy wolf. Clenching his teeth, he handed over the moon-gazing beast bone to the immortal guard and transformed into a shadow, dashing forward as if teleporting. His speed was so fast that he reached the rivers and mountains painting screen in an instant. At this point, the greedy wolf had no time to worry about Wang Lin stealing the treasure. He used all his speed, fleeing desperately. The ethereal ancient god's finger paused for a moment, slowly shifting its direction, seemingly locking onto Wang Lin. Wang Lin's scalp tingled, but without hesitation, he pointed into the void with his right hand, gathering all of his immortal power. He shouted, "Freeze!" His target wasn't the ancient god's finger, but the greedy wolf. The greedy wolf's eyes turned bloodshot, and his body suddenly paused for a moment. In that instant, he cursed wildly in his heart. Though the pause was brief, it immediately drew the ancient god's finger's attention. Seizing this opportunity, Wang Lin grabbed the rivers and mountains painting screen and stored it in his storage pouch. Without a second thought, he swiftly retreated. His heart pounded wildly as the crisis wasn't over yet. Moving with incredible speed, he made a beeline for the immortal guard. The immortal guard puppet had been fleeing all this time, but against the imposing moon gazing and the terrifying ancient god's finger, it clearly lacked the speed to escape. The greedy wolf, pale-faced, immediately slapped his storage pouch as the ancient god's finger descended. A golden crown appeared in his hand, resembling an emperor's crown from the mortal realm. It was encrusted with 5 massive gemstones, and 5 halos of gold, wood, water, fire, and earth enveloped it. Without hesitation, he placed the crown upon his head. In an instant, golden light blazed, flowing like water, enveloping his entire body. A massive ethereal figure appeared around him, its form unclear, but it wore a dragon robe, exuding an aura of majesty that filled the world. To unlock this immortal emperor crown, I killed 9,999 mortal emperors, taking their souls and fusing them into it. Now let's see if it can withstand your beastly finger, the greedy wolf growled. The ethereal ancient god's finger pressed down upon him. A tremendous boom, shocking the entire world, rang out. The ancient god's finger, without any change, pressed down on the greedy wolf. Immediately afterward, it was retracted. As for greedy wolf, his complexion turned even paler. The golden light around him collapsed, and the 9,999 emperors' souls instantly vanished into smoke. Even the emperor's crown atop his head was shaken loose, flying off into the distance. But curiously, the crown showed no sign of damage under the ancient god's single finger. It remained intact, as if nothing had happened. A great force surged into greedy wolf's body, causing him to tremble. His physical body flickered with 7-colored light, shooting out like a meteor. He plunged downwards, lost to life and death, disappearing into the starry sky. Wang Lin's eyes widened in shock. As the ancient god's finger descended toward greedy wolf, he hadn't paused for a moment, racing forward at breakneck speed. Yet, at that instant, the finger that had transformed into the ancient god suddenly appeared behind Wang Lin. The familiar aura of the ancient god instantly enveloped the world. With a single press, the finger came down. But the ancient god's finger wasn't aimed at the immortal guard. It was aimed directly at Wang Lin. Wang Lin nearly lost his soul. The finger moved too fast. Within an instant, it was almost upon him. In the face of this crisis, Wang Lin's eyes flashed with cold light. He slammed his hand onto the Immortal Guard puppet, pulling it back. Instantly, waves of killing intent surged from the puppet's body. In a moment, nearly 1,000,000 killing intents burst forth, forming countless seals of life, resisting the ancient god's finger. But as the finger moved, the life seals shattered like fragile paper, cracking with a series of snapping sounds. No matter how they concealed the killing intent, everything collapsed under this unimaginable force. Wang Lin's face turned pale, but his eyes held no panic. As he retreated with the Immortal Guard, he slapped his storage pouch. Immediately, a second Immortal Guard appeared, standing in front of him. The ancient god's finger pressed down on the second Immortal Guard, causing it to tremble. Its body quickly began to collapse, visibly crumbling before the eye. After shattering the second Immortal Guard, the ancient god's finger pressed down just 7 feet in front of Wang Lin. A sense of bone and flesh fracturing violently surged through Wang Lin's body, the sensation of life and death pressing down on him so heavily that he could barely breathe. With a roar, Wang Lin suddenly lifted his head, his sword energy from Ling Tianhou bursting out. In an instant, it shot forward, crashing into the ancient god's finger just as it descended. Ling Tianhou's sword energy held a certain level of power, causing the ancient god's finger to momentarily pause. But without hesitation, it continued its descent, directly pressing onto Wang Lin's chest. A sharp pain erupted from Wang Lin's chest, radiating through his entire body. In the blink of an eye, his physical body shattered. First, his flesh, then his bones, all turned to dust, vanishing in an instant. The ancient god's finger obliterated Wang Lin's body without pause, immediately pressing onto his essence spirit. Clearly, the moon-gazing beast intended to destroy him completely. At that very moment, Wang Lin suddenly felt a sensation. It was as though when he swallowed half of the primordial thunder dragon all those years ago, his essence spirit could not leave his body, as if trapped by a membrane. No matter how he struggled, he couldn't break through this membrane, which limited his essence spirit and prevented him from using certain divine powers. But now, as the ancient god's finger descended, his collapsing body shattered the membrane. Wang Lin's essence spirit exploded with intense lightning energy, transforming into a primordial thunder dragon that roared fiercely at the ancient god's finger. As the roar echoed, countless thunderbolts appeared around, relentlessly attacking the ancient god's finger. Taking advantage of this brief respite, Wang Lin's essence spirit, transformed into the primordial thunder dragon, wrapped the storage pouch he had once carried with his physical body. Moving far faster than his physical form had allowed, it took the Immortal Guard and a half-broken moon-gazing beast bone, rushing off without hesitation to escape. As he fled, Wang Lin felt a bitter taste in his mouth. But at that moment, he suddenly saw the crown that greedy wolf had once taken out, now quietly drifting in the starry sky ahead, moving slowly. His heart stirred. Wang Lin's divine sense reached out, pulling the crown into his grasp. Without a second glance, he sped off, leaving behind the pursuit of the ancient god. The ancient god's fingers slowly dissipated, and the enormous moon-gazing beast gazed at Wang Lin, who was retreating. A thoughtful look appeared in its eyes. It glanced at the giant cauldron on its tentacle, hesitated for a moment, and then pushed forward, chasing after him once more. Wang Lin sensed the moon-gazing beast approaching in the distance. He couldn't help but curse. This time, Wang Lin admitted that he had been reckless. He hadn't expected greedy wolf to appear here and provoke the moon-gazing beast into awakening. Otherwise, if he had followed his original plan, there's no way he would have ended up in such a desperate situation. His losses were tremendous. The 7-star sword formation destroyed, the forbidden banner shattered, a sword energy from Ling Tianhou dissipated, and now his physical body had collapsed, leaving only his essence spirit. But the gains were also considerable. His essence spirit had broken free. He had the half-broken moon-gazing beast bone, the soul-absorbing mountain stone, the rivers and mountains painting screen, and finally, the crown. It was hard to say whether it was a gain or a loss. Wang Lin sighed inwardly, pushing his speed even further. The moon-gazing beast behind him was getting closer with every passing moment. Every time it moved forward, it crossed vast distances. If Wang Lin still had his physical body, he might have been caught long ago, But now that his physical body was gone, and only his essence spirit remained, his speed was several times that of his physical form. As he raced forward, Wang Lin's essence spirit merged into the star compass, carrying the immortal guard and the half-moon gazing beast bone, desperately fleeing. Wang Lin wasn't confident that he could escape if he encountered that ancient god's finger again. If the moon-gazing beast caught up to him, death was certain. With his essence spirit merged into the star compass, its speed was almost unbelievable. Slowly, a balance was reached between him and the moon-gazing beast. While he hadn't escaped, he had managed to maintain some distance. However, this level of flight drained Wang Lin's essence spirit greatly. He was already heavily injured, and now his wounds were worsening, causing his essence spirit to dim slightly. Passing through the northern Luo Heaven region, Wang Lin continued racing forward, reaching the southern Luo Heaven region. After a long stretch of high-speed travel, Wang Lin's essence spirit grew weaker and weaker, as if it might collapse at any moment. Behind him, the moon-gazing beast also slowed down. When it reached the boundary between the northern and southern Luo Heaven regions, it finally came to a halt, releasing several low growls, but not daring to cross. Wang Lin sighed with relief, a lingering fear in his eyes. This moon-gazing beast is far too strong. If not for its slow speed, I'd have surely died today. The memories of 2C's description of the moon-gazing beast. Other than its appearance, it hardly resembles the beast in those memories. How could this moon-gazing beast be so powerful? Wang Lin glanced back at the distant northern Luo Heaven region, deep in thought. With the strength of this moon-gazing beast, why does it seem unwilling to step into this place? Could there be something terrifying here that it fears? Unable to figure it out, Wang Lin sighed and looked at his own essence spirit's condition, smiling bitterly. While breaking through that membrane of the essence spirit is a good thing, losing my physical body and trying to condense a new one could take an unknown amount of time. Possessing someone else's body is too restrictive, and without a suitable body, it's just not worth the effort. After pondering for a moment, Wang Lin made up his mind and flew forward. First, I need to find a place to seclude myself, refine this half-moon gazing beast bone, and see if I can achieve the perfection of heaven-defying. Then, I'll focus on condensing a new physical body. Wang Lin's eyes flashed as he headed straight for the endless starry sky. The moon-gazing beast gazed into the distance, hesitation evident in its giant eyes. After a long time, it slowly retreated. In its memories, someone had warned it not to enter ahead. However, this memory was too old and blurry, but the sense of danger it had felt back then remained in its mind, influencing its thoughts even now. Gradually retreating, the moon-gazing beast's countless tentacles swayed. From afar, it exuded a terrifying pressure. Many cultivators had already noticed the moon-gazing beast, but after a single glance, they instantly felt their hair stand on end, their minds shaken, and they fled, cursing their slow speed. Within the 5 great primary stars range of the northern Luo Heaven region, the moon-gazing beast stopped. Its elliptical body gradually contracted into a sphere, enclosing the giant cauldron within. Countless tentacles slowly retracted, eventually merging into the moon-gazing beast's body. A misty vapor emanated from the moon-gazing beast, creating a dense fog that spread out. The moon-gazing beast then entered its second state and began to sleep. But this time, the location it chose made every cultivator in the northern Luo Heaven region feel a shiver. It was just too close to the 5 great primary stars. On a relatively primitive planet in the starry sky of the northern Luo Heaven region, where spiritual energy was not dense, but ordinary humans resided, something descended from the sky. It was surrounded by 7-colored light, and with a loud crash, it landed on a plain in the northern part of the planet. The greedy wolf's bones shattered, his physical body collapsed, and his essence spirit was damaged, but he didn't die. Not only did he survive, but his eyes also revealed a look of wild joy. Before coming to the Luo Heaven star domain, he had numerous seals in his body, each possessing immense power that could easily kill him. However, with the approach of the ancient god's finger, something strange occurred, causing all of these seals to shatter simultaneously. The only seal left was that of Tian Yunzi's. As long as I'm given time, I'm confident I can recover. The greedy wolf took a deep breath, his body slowly sinking and disappearing into the plane. From this day onward, every mortal living on this ordinary planet would smell a faint, unpleasant odor, though no matter how hard they searched, they could never locate the source. It was as if the foul smell emanated from the very earth itself. At this moment, Wang Lin was flying through the southern Luo heaven region. Instead of searching for cultivation stars with cultivators, he set his sights on abandoned planets. A faint sensation stirred within Wang Lin's essence spirit, as if there were a place in the Luo heaven southern region that made him feel incredibly comfortable. Subconsciously, he flew toward it, and the closer he got, the more his essence spirit's injuries began to heal. Gradually, he drew nearer, and when Wang Lin finally saw the place that brought him such comfort, a strange light appeared in his eyes. Before him lay a vast layer of shattered stones, with countless rocks of varying sizes seemingly drawn by some mysterious force, densely surrounding one another to form a natural barrier. Wang Lin could feel that the place he was drawn to, the source of his comfort, lay deep within this sea of rocks. He paused for a moment, not moving himself, but instead sending out a manifestation from his star compass, retrieving the moon-gazing beast bone. With his thoughts guiding it, the immortal guard puppet swiftly appeared, weaving through the stones and gradually entering the depths. The layer of shattered stones was immense. The immortal guard flew for a long time without reaching its interior, but what it did witness was an odd sight. It was a desolate planet, not large, even smaller than Ranyun's star, only about half its size. Yet, it was surrounded by flashes of lightning, with constant bolts of heavenly thunder roaming, as if the planet were wrapped in an electric net. The thunder seemed endless, constantly falling. This planet was nameless and located in a remote part of the Luo Heaven southern region, further hidden by the surrounding shattered stone layer, making it hard to detect. Wang Lin placed a trace of his divine sense into the immortal guard, and he could clearly see the planet. The feeling of comfort drew nearer, but he knew that the true source of this comfort was not the small planet, but deep within the stone layer. However, there was a strange force here that restricted divine sense exploration, preventing him from seeing the full picture. Despite that, he did sense that even as weak as it was compared to the depths of the stone layer, the planet still held a certain sense of comfort. This place is an ideal location for a retreat. Wang Lin's eyes gleamed. With half of the moon-gazing beast bone in tow, he rushed toward the stone layer, gradually meeting up with the immortal guard, and finally saw the lightning-filled little planet with his own eyes. This place was found through the resonance of my essence spirit. Here, my essence spirit heals rapidly, Wang Lin murmured for a moment, as the immortal guard led the way toward the small planet. We'll reside here for now. Once my injuries are healed and my physical body is refined, I'll explore deeper into the stone layer. Wang Lin understood that after his essence spirit consumed half of the primordial thunder dragon, it had already undergone a transformation. Thunder-based techniques no longer had any effect on him, as long as the thunder wasn't from the primordial thunder dragon, which once represented the heavenly Tao's authority over thunder in the primordial era. His physical body had shattered, torn apart by the ancient god's finger, freeing his essence spirit. However, his essence spirit was injured, and the hasty escape only worsened the damage. In this state, even Wang Lin himself didn't understand how his essence spirit had ended up here. But now, he realized that if the primordial thunder dragon were injured, it would naturally seek a place filled with thunder might to recover faster, a place that would bring it comfort and even a sense of safety. Now that his physical body had collapsed and his essence spirit had been freed, Wang Lin's essence spirit was like a primordial thunder dragon, drawing him toward this place. Understanding the cause and effect, Wang Lin felt at ease in his heart as he gazed at the lightning-filled small planet before him. It felt almost like returning home. As he moved forward, the thunder rumbled in his ears, thick and overwhelming, immediately enveloping him in an extremely pleasant sensation. This sensation seemed to act directly on his essence spirit, like a pair of gentle hands softly caressing it. At this moment, Wang Lin's essence spirit emitted a blue light, with thunder and lightning coursing through it. Part of it extended toward the moon-gazing beast bone, causing the vast mountain to emit crackling sounds. However, The Immortal Guard puppet immediately halted, its lively eyes showing a rare hint of hesitation, as though it feared the lightning. Wang Lin turned back, his expression thoughtful. The Immortal Guard was not usually afraid of lightning. After all, when it was created, the essence spirit energy Wang Lin infused contained the might of thunder. Moreover, over the years, the Immortal Guard had frequently encountered lightning-based techniques in battle, yet it had never hesitated like this before. Could it be that the lightning here is unusual? Wang Lin's gaze sharpened as he scrutinized the lightning swirling around him. After a long while, a look of realization appeared in his eyes. The lightning here was natural, not created by any technique or spell. Its properties were remarkably similar to the thunder within his essence spirit. No wonder the Immortal Guard puppet feels a bit apprehensive, thought Wang Lin. Thunder is divided into two types, acquired thunder and innate thunder. Acquired thunder represents all divine abilities and transformations, while innate thunder has no such powers. This thunder naturally forms from the interaction between heaven and earth. His mind stirred slightly, and the Immortal Guard puppet retreated, sitting cross-legged on a large piece of shattered stone that was relatively close by, beginning to meditate and regulate its breath. Wang Lin turned around, put away the star compass, and carried the moon gaze bone. He gradually flew into the Thunderlight planet. The closer he got, the denser the thunder became. Eventually, it reached an incredibly terrifying level. If it had been anyone else, they might have done as the Immortal Guard puppet did and backed off. After all, the thunder here had surpassed the limit that both the physical body and essence spirit could withstand. But for Wang Lin, especially after the collapse of his physical body, this place had no effect on him. In fact, the closer he got, the more he felt an overwhelming sense of comfort. If Wang Lin's physical body had still been intact, he would have been restricted. Even here, his body would not have been able to endure it. But now, by some twist of fate, his speed had increased instead. Gradually, he entered the Thunderlight planet. All around him, the ground was covered in roaming lightning. The entire planet, inside and out, was shrouded in this intense thunder, as though he had stepped into a thunder prison.